Women racing airplanes is a tradition that began in 1929 with the all-women's transcontinental air race, better known as the Powder Puff Derby. Another well-known name, Amelia Earhart, flew in that inaugural race from Santa Monica, California to Cleveland, Ohio. She finished in 8 days. Fast forward 77 years and the race is still on, only now it must be finished in 4 days. The Air Race Classic is the only all-woman transcontinental air race flying today. When the Powder Puff Derby made its last run in 1977, the Air Race Classic stepped in to continue the tradition of transcontinental speed competition for women pilots. How did you first become interested in aviation?
My grandmother flew, and she flew in Connecticut, and I decided about 10 years ago I needed to do something more with my life, and called a very close friend of mine, said I want to learn to fly, and here I am.
The Ada Municipal Airport served as one of 9 stops along the 2006 race from Mesa, Arizona to Menominee, Michigan. Ada also served as a stop in 1999. Not only is it good publicity for Ada, but it's also good for the local economy. Of the 32 planes making the race, 13 stayed overnight in Ada.
It's a high learning curve. It's very intense. Racing is very different than just flying for pleasure, but it's a great experience.
Hi, ladies.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how y'all?
Good. It's a little warm here.
Each of the 32 planes carried at least 2 pilots, and 2 of the planes carried 3 pilots. A crowded cockpit makes for close company.
We get along really well.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Yeah.
I know last year a lot of people said, the question was, how did you two get along? And we were like, great.
It worked fine.
But there are some that I think struggle in the cockpit.
Yeah, it's a team, and it has to be a team. It doesn't work well if you're not. If you're not getting along, the only thing that happens is your time gets worse.
So I've heard several people talk about the heat, so when you're up in your aircraft it gets pretty hot.
It does. It's yesterday was really miserable. Drink a lot of water. We've got little fans that we put around our neck that kind of stir the hot air around. I can't say that that's exactly great, but
You know the planes are not air conditioned. Yeah.
right.
In 4 days, each team made the run through the 7 stops between the Arizona starting point and the Michigan finish line. In order, the stops were Santa Teresa, New Mexico, Ozona and Bryan, Texas, Bastrop, Louisiana, Ada, Lawrence, Kansas, and Albert Lea, Minnesota.
I was just talking to the guy about fueling the truck because they don't have a 10-foot ladder. You have to drive the truck under the wing, climb on top of the truck so that you can reach the fuel. And we've been doing that at a couple of stops.
Women pilots ranging from ages 17 to 90 participated in this 30th annual Air Race Classic. They are college students, airline pilots, flight instructors, attorneys, models, singers, librarians, entrepreneurs, and more.
I'm a flight instructor and a corporate pilot. I've flown since '88.
And I'm a retired federal judge and kind of non-practicing attorney. I teach at university and have a legal clinic at a university. And I'm a hobby pilot, more or less. I've been flying for 5 years. And my airplane insurance agent is helping sponsoring this because he wants me to get more hours in the plane.
One of each team's members must have logged at least 500 hours as pilot in command or have earned an instrument rating. Watching so many skilled flyers land and take off in Ada makes it hard to believe that in today's age, women still account for less than 10% of all licensed pilots.
You have to be a pilot in order to be part of the race, and you actually have to be a pilot who's qualified to fly the plane you're flying. So I own a 1947 Luscombe, which is a small stick tailwheel, and this plane has variable pitch prop, so I had to go and get a high performance endorsement on my license. And then this plane has landing gear, so I had to go get a complex endorsement on my license because each of those requires something more than my license has. So yes, I'm qualified to fly this plane, and you need to be in order to be in the plane. Actually, even if there's a passenger, the passenger needs to be a pilot. One of the big things that they're doing is trying to be positive about aviation and trying to show that flying needs to be safe, and that is the ultimate thing of this whole race, is be safe.
A small army of volunteers is positioned at each stop to record the time each plane crosses an imaginary line on the airport runway, to fuel the aircraft, and to offer refreshments or rides to local hotels for overnight stays. Perhaps the most important job on the ground is that of timekeeper.
Ready? This is 1-5.
Last year, the difference between 1st and 10th was about 3 knots, but the difference between 5th and 10th was a half a knot.
Can you believe that?
So the guys out in the tent,
They're really important. They're really important, and we're all keeping numbers, keeping our times as well in the airplane, so that we can verify with the scorer at the end. Yeah, that's what we got. I mean, I think last year we were 14 seconds off what the timer had for 2,500 miles.
race planes are limited to stock or minimally modified stock aircraft, with not less than 145 horsepower and no more than 750 horsepower. The plane has to be rated for maximum continuous operation. Each airplane is competing against its own clock. More specifically, it's assigned handicapped based on manufacturer's data and flight tests. The highest score in knots per hour above the plane's handicap is the goal and wins the race. Tell us about how you race against the clock instead of each other and how it's handicapped.
Okay, each airplane is handicapped according to its stock performance plus any modifications, basically to even the playing field between all the racers, because we all fly different types of airplanes. At the end, what you're trying to do is better your handicap score. So if you race, let's say, 10 knots over your handicap, you get 10 points for that leg. At the end of the race, those points are all averages. What we do is we divide the race into miles and seconds, and it's a race to the second, and that's how it's scored. And the person with the largest point total over their handicap speed is the one that wins. There's some very, very serious racers. There's also some that are just out here having fun, they're new at it. I would say at the end of the trip, everybody's a lot more friendly because all the pressure's off.
As always, tailwinds are the hope of every competitor. This year's route takes the planes east, north, and west, so pilots will evaluate carefully what time of day to fly and what altitudes to use. They have the freedom to choose when to fly and how high, as long as they finish in 4 days and fly between sunrise and sunset.
This is our 5th leg, and there are 8 legs, so tomorrow, hopefully, we will go from here to Kansas, Minnesota, and then finish in Michigan. It'd be nice to finish in Michigan tomorrow night, but it really depends on the weather.
The Air Race Classic is not cheap. Teams may pay anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000 to run the race. The biggest cost is fuel, which has risen sharply since last year's race. Airplanes flown at full power and low altitudes consume more fuel than under normal flight conditions. An airplane that normally burns 14 gallons per hour might burn 20 or more under race condition. Sponsors help offset racing costs.
We've just had some things happen along the way that, you need to stay in a hotel that was a little more expensive than you planned. You're really hungry and you don't care what the meal costs. So, and fuel. Flying at a race, you fly the plane very different than when you're flying just for pleasure. So typically this plane would burn, we got 17 gallons an hour on the way down. We're up to somewhere between, 19 and 23. It varies on how, but you're really pushing the plane. It's not bad for the plane, but it's burning more fuel.
Although there is a definite competitive spirit at play, the Air Race Classic also serves as an opportunity for women pilots to interact. Lifelong friendships are formed and great memories are made. Why do you guys do this?
We're adventure addicts, I guess. I don't know. It's a lot of fun.
Type double A's.
Okay.